Thank you so much, Zach, for being patient with us. I really, really appreciate it. Now it's your time to come up here. You're doing fantastic work at Anthropic on the responsible scaling policies, and we're really dying to hear a bit more about what you guys are working on. I think Anthropic has been really leading the way of like voluntarily coming up with these scaling policies in a responsible manner, and I think it's just really inspiring what you guys are doing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Alison, and thank you all. I'm going to talk a little bit about AI safety and responsible scaling and what Anthropic is doing. Starting with why now? We've been talking collectively about AI for a long time, but I think things have changed recently. And the main thing that's changed is due to scaling laws. Can I just see a quick show of hands? Who here's seen plots that look like this before? Okay, so who here has seen these plots? These are broadly similar. These are indicating that as you scale systems up, and oh boy, are people scaling systems up, they very reliably work better. They cost more, but you put in more compute and you get more capabilities out. And the growth is pretty stark. But it's not just that it's growing, right? We actually see that we're starting from basic grammar, moving on to fun things, writing some marketing copy, which is in fact useful, a helper, and now we're looking at things like writing a decent fraction of all the code that people write, human level at a variety of tasks, passing professional exams. And what's coming next? One possibility is that we have to acknowledge things are changing faster and faster. This is a graph of how quickly various benchmarks have saturated over the last decade, and it's speeding up considerably. And we just don't know where we are on the S-curve, right? Are we just getting started and things will get incredibly wild? Are we kind of topping out and dangerous things are possible but very unlikely, or are we somewhere in the middle? We don't really know, but I think that collectively we ought to be planning for each of these scenarios. And so Anthropic has this essay from almost 2 years ago now, Core Views on AI Safety, which says that Anthropic was founded because we think the impact is going to be really, really big, and we're not confident that that's going to go well. So we might be in this scenario where safety concerns just aren't a problem, or we might be in a very pessimistic scenario, and Anthropic, as an organization, is pretty agnostic on this question. We just don't know. And so our strategy has been to do research and do development activities which kind of move us incrementally towards safety at increasingly risky margins. In easy scenarios, our goal is really to unlock the benefits, to make sure that we've done the basic research to make that possible, and then to deploy widely to many people to empower everyone we can. In these intermediate scenarios, we're going to need a really strong, focused research effort to solve the safety problems that might face us. Or in much more difficult scenarios, it just might not be possible to make AI systems safe on the kind of timelines that they're developed. And so in those scenarios, what we need to do is get the evidence of that can convince people at other labs, people in governments, that collectively humanity needs to do something else. And if we knew what kind of scenario we were in, this would all be much easier. But we don't. People disagree on this. Many of you might have views. I don't know what they are. But what Anthropic is doing about this doesn't depend on any particular view about what's likely to happen when. The idea is that we have what we call our responsible scaling policy. We adopted the first version a bit more than a year ago, and we updated it about 2 months ago. So we're committed not to train or deploy models which are catastrophic of causing capable harm without having safety and security measures that keep the risks acceptably low. We talk about this as AI safety levels, by analogy to biosafety levels. Currently, we're at ASL 2. These present a little risk, but not that much. At ASL 3, the risks are considerably higher, and ASL 4 is not yet defined, but they're very serious, currently somewhat speculative risks. And so we define what we call capability thresholds. What are the things that if we saw a model do them would indicate that we should be really concerned? And then we define the safeguards that we think would be required in that situation. So we're not claiming, next year you have to do X, but rather if you see X, we should do Y, and we're committed to doing that. Currently, those commitments cover CBR and weapons systems, autonomous research and development, and kind of keeping an eye out for cyber operations. We write a capabilities report for each new model we evaluate, Rather than committing to exact evaluations in advance, we specify the process, the external reviews, and the internal reporting that we need to go through. That's because it's really hard to predict AI in advance. It's very easy to get into a situation where you write your definition, and then the thing that happens turns out not to quite fit, or it turns out to trigger early in a way that wasn't really what you were imagining. And so I think this process approach, plus the plans of record that we publish, is a pretty good way to balance those risks. We have security and deployment safeguards. Deployment so that people can't use the services that we share with the world to cause serious harm, and security so that no one can steal the weights of our models and then use them without those deployment safeguards. We have internal governance measures we've committed to, including having an executive responsible scaling officer, incident readiness drills, transparency, independent review, non-compliance reporting and whistleblower processes, and more. So you can find all of this at anthropic.com/RSP. And we share a bunch of our key material on both the evaluation and the deployment of our models with external experts. We ask for their input on threat modeling, on reviews, on auditing, and we hope that this kind of transparency will enable both oversight of what we're doing, but also better discourse on what are the risks, what kind of regulation might be appropriate, next year or in the years after. We don't share literally everything publicly. If you're looking at things like how could individuals or small groups cause catastrophic harm, there are in fact good reasons not to publish all of the threat modeling we do there. But you can read most of it on anthropic.com/RSP updates. And our goal here is to craft exportable policies that aren't just fit for Anthropic, but that support other organizations, whether they're labs or governments, in adopting and achieving similar safety goals. So with that, thank you.
Thanks. Fantastic. Questions, comments, perhaps? Okay.
Zach, thanks so much. It's so hard to predict what risks will actually materialize. To what extent do actual risks that are caused by AI enter or drive the whole process?
I think we have two categories of risks that we really think about. So broadly, you can think about misuse risks, where humans who want to cause harm do so in a way that they wouldn't have been able to do without advice or assistance from an AI system. And then you might also have the kind of classic misalignment or accident risks, where the AI system, without any human desiring it, ends up causing harm in some way. And that could be that it's a systemic factor where we've kind of drifted into a hazard, or it could be that the model sort of systematically plans to do something that it knows we wouldn't approve of. So the question was, what about risks which have already happened? To what extent do those drive our thinking? We do consider those. Most of the risks that we've seen occur to date are managed through our acceptable use policy, our trust and safety team. But I think many of the misuse risks we're concerned about are things which people are known to have attempted. For example, various terrorist groups or cults have tried to run chemical or biological weapons programs. And our evaluations of Claude do indicate that we're on the verge of meaningful uplift that increases the risk there.
Thank you so much. I really admire the work that Anthropic is doing, leading in the field. High five for this. My background is in clinical trials, and medicine takes detection extremely seriously. We're pumping hundreds of millions of dollars, the equivalent of training runs, into just detecting the capabilities. Or like the equivalent of capabilities, like serious events. I'm curious, do you see this in the future, that we have more money invested on detecting and measuring this properly, as opposed to a couple of people at Anthropic trying this, having loads of independent teams evaluating this with a thoroughness that we are running clinical trials these days?
One of the most exciting developments to me over the last few years has been the growth of this field beyond Anthropic. We have multiple governments standing up AI safety institutes, otherwise doing evaluations. There are a variety of independent nonprofits working on it. Of course, other AI labs, in many cases, have adopted similar frameworks. So I am really excited by the growth we've seen in people not just paying attention to this, but actually acting on it. And I think that's been quite promising. Thank you all.